Welcome to the 31 Days of Horror 2018. Leslie could not join us because the film we are about to take a look at, she had already seen. In fact, everybody in this house except for me had. But I'm joined here by our new pet. Yes, brand new this year. So he's gonna keep me company while I talk to you about The Visit. Yes, I will put you down on the floor here. Then you won't get hurt. So yes, The Visit. M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. M. Night Shyamalan, you know, the director, writer, etc., actor, whatever you want to call him, who is, you know, famous for I See Dead People, and then he had some aliens, and all sorts of other things. He's dealt with all sorts of subgenres of horror and such. Was kind of had a sort of downs. He was up high, started off up high, and then kind of faded down, and now he's kind of risen back up. And I think The Visit may be where that kind of started, perhaps. And yeah. So what is The Visit? Well, essentially The Visit is, as it says here, what Jaws did for sharks and Psycho did for showers, The Visit will do for grandparents. Yes, this is essentially a look at ageism and senior citizens as being the other, being the evil, the horror that's being exploited in this one. Yeah, so the film is essentially about a mother who sends her two kids off to see their grandparents who they've never met before. The mother and the grandparents had a falling out when she was really, really young, and so they've never talked since. And so Mom is going off on vacation, a much needed vacation apparently, because she's gone through some bad times, and the kids are like, we've never met our grandparents, let's go see our grandparents. Well, you know, Mom can go on vacation, so they're kind of like doing her a favor, right? They want to meet their grandparents, want to find out about their grandparents, and I guess about their mother at the same time and where she comes from. And so they go and have a trip and meet their grandparents. And this is, as we all know, when you get older, sometimes things aren't quite, you know, you aren't as healthy as you were when you were younger, and things start taking place while these kids are visiting their grandparents that really isn't on the up and up. It's not really things that normal people would do. And you take a look into some very disturbing imagery that is, you know, mental illness, growing old, all those types of things. Everything can be explained away, of course, but, you know, there's always a twist, because that's the way M. Night Shyamalan works. One of the things about this film that is a little bit different is, for the most part, I guess they had two cameras running, so the two kids, they're not really, really young. The eldest is the daughter, and she is essentially trying to make a documentary of, you know, using this trip. And so she's got her laptop and her laptop camera, and I think they've got a video camera and a digital SLR, DSLR, So they're using those to shoot video, all these aspects to shoot video. And she's, kind of putting that all together to create this documentary. And that's essentially what we're watching, I guess, is the documentary she's created, in a way, I guess. So, before I get into my thoughts on the film, I guess I should go over who's involved. Again, M. Night Shyamalan is the man behind the film, and he's pretty well known. The mother, who isn't in the film a lot, she's, like I said, goes on vacation. So you see her at the beginning. You see her via like Skype calls certain times during the movie. That's Catherine Hahn, who very much is mostly a comedian. If I had to describe her as anything, she is, at least from what what I've seen her in, is mostly comedic roles, and I mean that goes all the way back to her early work, including How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Win a Date with Tad Hamilton, Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, that kind of stuff, right? But I think recently it was it Bad Moms? I think was the name of the... Bad Moms, yeah, and we just watched a Bad Moms Christmas not too long ago. Those are the the recent films that I had seen her in. And of course she was in, if you've watched Transparent, she's a big part in that as well, and a whole bunch of other things, Parks and Rec, if you watch that. She's been in a bunch of that kind of stuff. So she doesn't play a major role in this particular film, but she'd probably be the most recognizable face, I would think, out of all of them, even though the grandparents have done a lot. I'd say they've probably done more, well, especially the grandfather has done a lot more, work. He's definitely a working actor since like the 1980s. And he's played by Peter McRobbie, who you may recognize him. I would say a lot of the roles, he has a lot of, well, like any of these people, especially over a long period of time, they have a lot of times where they take on bit parts or one-offs in television shows, or nondescript characters in films. Like in Spider-Man 2, he was an Oscorp representative. Like, you're not going to remember him from that necessarily. But I do find that he's played a lot of television roles. Like, I mean, in the remake of Shaft, he was Lieutenant Cromartie, if you remember that. And he's, I mean, even in his television appearances, like things like Law and Order, he's been in those type of things, where he's playing, either a cop or a detective or something along those lines quite often. So if you recognize, and he has that look, don't get me wrong, he has that look. But in terms of recent work, he's been in that Lincoln movie. He was George Pendleton. He had a wide stint in Law and Order Special, SVU, where he played Judge Walter Bradley. He was in Boardwalk Empire, if you watch that one. Supervisor Elliot, Frederick Elliot. He was that character. And then, if you watched, was it Bridge of Spies with Tom Hanks recently? I think it was up for an Academy Award. Or it was, I don't know. But he was Alan Dulles in there. If you watch The Defenders and the Daredevil program, he plays Father Lantome in that. But one thing that you may be, maybe on your radar, maybe you've seen it recently, Hold the Dark, brand new movie. I believe it's on Netflix. He plays Hunter John in that movie. So that would be where you probably know him most recently from, if you're into horror movies and you're watching this. That may be your best bet in terms of figuring out who that guy is. Nana, or Grandma, is played by Deanna Dunagan. Her repertoire isn't quite as extensive, but again, it does go back to the 1980s. And if you've seen, she was in the TV movie Hard Knocks, but she's probably most known for Running Scared from 1986 as Sister Rebecca. In terms of recent work, wasn't a lot really. It's mostly one-offs here and there in television, but if you're into horror television and you watched either The Strain or The Exorcist, she did have parts in those, including 4 episodes of The Exorcist as Mother Bernadette. And I can see her playing that part, right? I haven't actually watched The Exorcist television show, so I didn't know her from that. She's great in this film. I absolutely love her in this film. Now the 2 kids, the youngest one, Tyler, the young boy, is played by Ed Oxenbould, who honestly you probably don't know who he is unless you have kids and you went and saw Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. He was the Alexander Cooper guy. That's the character he played. And then after that, he went and did The Visit here. He went on later on, I think a year or 2 later, to play Garrett in Better Watch Out. So if you saw that, I haven't seen that yet. I think that's a Christmas horror movie, isn't it? Right? So that'll show up in the 12 Days of Xmas at one point. But outside of that, I don't even recognize most of the names of the stuff he's been in. His older sister, Becca, is played by Olivia DeJonge. Now, she has been in not a lot of stuff, but a lot more recognizable, this being her second feature film. Her first feature film was The Sisterhood of the Night, but then she went on to play in the film Scare Campaign. She was Abby, also in Better Watch Out. Clearly they must have the same agent or something gripping them. She was Ashley in that film, and then she also was in Undertow. If you happen to catch that, it's a newer film. She was the Angie character in that one. So she's had probably one of the, other than M. Night Shyamalan, in terms of the credits here, she's had probably one of the most horror-related careers thus far, when you think about it. Now, this film, my thoughts on it. I liked it. I really, like I said, I think this is kind of where M. Night kind of starts his progression upwards again. It wasn't as scary as I had hoped. It did. There were a few moments where it tried, and I'm sure Sarah would give it quite a bunch of scaries if she was here, but I do think the scares that were attempted could have been better. It doesn't really try this. It doesn't have, though it could have had a lot of suspense. It doesn't really do a lot of suspense. The first-person perspective use of cameras and stuff really does lend itself well for what's going on in this film. But at the same time, because there are so many cameras and the way it's put together, you almost don't realize it sometimes that we are watching a shot on film, documentary, hidden footage, whatever you want to call them, type film, simply because the camera is has been set down stationary and is just sort of catching what's going on, type thing, or because somebody's filming and the other person is also filming, but they don't have their camera necessarily in the shot, and so they start talking, and then of course it's almost like a shot reverse shot, because then they start shooting, and then you don't see the camera in the other person's hand, but even though they were just literally like juxtaposed, right? So it does lend itself to having a more traditional film-like quality sometimes, compared to a lot of other films of the similar style, similar, what does he call it, genre, the found footage subgenre. But I did like how he tackled the whole concept and idea of elderly as scary. Though, I mean, some people might take offense. In this film, it really is... it is played up as you don't know whether something is really, really bad is going on, or is this really just they're old people and we're, scared. And that's the beauty of this film, as M. Night is able to create this fear, this horror film, just based out of these people are old and old people have problems. And that's what I think I love most about this film. I liked all the acting. The young boy, not so much. The mom, again, she's more into comedy. I've never really cared much for her. I care much for her in the Bad Mom movies. She kind of has this typecast to her, and if she could get out of it and do something different, it might be better for her. But she really is typecast in this kind of a personality that she's able to portray, and maybe that's all she can do. I don't know. Maybe that's why. But it does leak into this film, and it kind of takes away from her character because she's just supposed to be a regular mom. The boy, on the other hand, he comes off, I don't know. He's not as genuine as I would have liked him to be. The acting is fine in terms of delivery of lines and coming across as a young boy and stuff like that. But there's something about it that just seems too clean. That type of thing. I don't know. It's not. I wouldn't say he was out of character at any point in time. It just I got this sense that he was too clean compared to what his character seemed to be trying to be in the film. I guess that's how you say it. So he didn't quite. I don't think he quite nailed the role, but he didn't do a bad job either. So because grandma, grandpa, and older sister, all three of those tended to. I really think they nailed what they were doing. You can kind of let the other stuff go, and the film still works. I would have liked. Honestly, this film is. It's like a 3.5 out of 5. It could have been a 4.5 if the suspense had been better. But it's suspense with what they were doing would have been a little hard, but not impossible. And I know M. Night can do. I know he can do it. He's very, very meticulous, and he often has a tendency to do long shots and stuff like that. So I don't know why he didn't pull more from the tension in this film. The other thing is, I think the scares could have been delivered better, especially because they were using almost point of view type scares going on. They were the ones that were not telegraphed weren't super scary, and the ones that were telegraphed you knew were coming. So I think maybe the sound had a lot to do with that as well. They could have done maybe a little bit more with the sound and how the music and all that kind of stuff was driving the tension and driving that force, and before nailing home the scare. But at the same time, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed what was going on. So, I wasn't really taken back by the lack of how scary the film was. and I'm not sure I was expecting the film to be super scary. I didn't know what to expect from it. I do know that a lot of people really, really enjoyed it, so I was expecting something good. So maybe this film is actually better than I thought, because I was going in with higher than normal expectations. So, but yeah, I do recommend The Visit. I recommend all of M. Night's films. Some of them are better than others, but you know what? As a filmmaker as a whole, you're gonna have your ups and downs, and I even his downs, I enjoy something from them. I don't think I've ever disliked one of his films completely. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. Whether it be about the film, The Visit, whether it be about any of the actors in the film, or M. Night Shyamalan's, career in general. He's always fun to talk about. Love to hear from you. There will be more 31 Days of Horror, clearly, for 2018, because we're just starting now, and I got 31 movies at least to watch this month. Yeah. Do I have 31 movies I've never seen before? Yes. Yes, I do. I've been saving them up. So don't worry. Sit right there. There will be more to come. And yeah, we'll have some fun, have a little discussion, and enjoy the 31 Days of Horror 2018. Take care. Have a good one.